Hello everyone, this is Scott Jorgens from Endeavour Solutions. Thank you for joining our webinar series. Today's topic is going to be on expense management in Microsoft Dynamics GP and special guests from QuickTag who are going to show us the QuikExpense applications. For those that are new to Endeavour, we've been around for 28 years now. We have over 450 active clients that we're supporting across Canada and the US. Key offices in Toronto and Halifax, as well as Montreal, London, and Edmonton. The lines of service are advisory services for consulting, strategy, business process redesign, implementation and ongoing support and upgrades for clients on Microsoft Dynamics GP, Dynamics 365, and the Microsoft Cloud products, including Office 365 and Azure. And those on the line, I'm sure actively call our support desk for ongoing support and optimization of your Microsoft Dynamics investments. You can visit our team online at www.endeavorsolutions.ca. Profiles about our various services, some great case studies, list of testimonials, as well as our consultant profiles. So with that said, and for introductions, I'm going to pass it over to Mary, who's going to provide introductions to fantastic expense management reporting applications, works on mobile devices as well as desktops. Not only makes it easier for end users to submit their stuff and hopefully move away from all those boring and laborious Excel sheets, but also greatly impacting your finance team and helping them to streamline those processes to get the expenses and Canadian taxes into GP. And not to forget your executive team and management team who have to approve the expenses. A nice simple way for them to quickly review expenses of their team and their reports and approvals for those, so that's not all on the burden of your finance team. So with that said, I am going to turn it over to you, Mary, let you introduce yourself and make you presenter.
Excellent. Thank you, Scott, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and I look forward to sharing everything that Scott just described. I can only hope that it lives up to and ideally exceeds your expectations with that as background for how we're going to get started and what we're going to cover this morning. So, as Scott mentioned, we're going to cover expense management and how it can be automated, and my name is Mary Miller, and I am the head of sales and marketing over here at ImageTag, and with our QuickTag products and team here, I'm also very involved in the product management team and roadmap and strategy and all of that. So as we look at situations like this, we truly welcome your feedback and input. Let's take a look and dive right into, why it is that we're gathered here today, and we're going to talk about expense management and the automation of that particular process within your organization. But let's talk a little bit about why first. I always find it's helpful, maybe you do too, to understand what's driving our business to make a certain decision, especially when it comes to automation or software or process change, because let's face it, even though it's painful, even though it's manual, even though people want to tear their hair out because it's, frustrating and time consuming, there are certain elements to our business that we do because it's what people know how to do. And sometimes if we don't take a step back and look at why we should do something different, we just keep doing them, as painful and as time consuming as they may be. So specifically related to expense management and how we're doing it in many of our organizations today is we look at the fact that 52% of all expense reports and receipts are still physically mailed to AP and the finance team for processing. Now, I can share an example with you. When I used to work for a large global organization, I was stationed initially in our Chicago location, then I moved out here to Arizona, so then I'm a level removed from our US base, and then of course our worldwide global headquarters was in the UK. I would incur expenses that when I was traveling back and forth, to our Chicago office or clients or events or whatnot, I'd get back to my home office here in Arizona, and I would spend literally an hour or two, sometimes more, pulling out all of the receipts, hoping that I didn't miss one, leave it in a bag in a hotel room, laying around somewhere, whatever, and, create that frustratingly detailed Excel spreadsheet, right, of line item by line item by line item. Then I would print that out, I would make copies of all of my receipts so that nothing got lost along the way and in the mail and whatnot between offices. And then I would staple the receipts after I'd done copy them, send them to our home office in Chicago for our U.S. approval, who then would send them via interoffice mail whenever they got around to it over to the U.K. office for headquarter processing. Some weeks later, I'd get a notification, your expense report's been approved, a check is on the way. Great. So it can be a very long and frustrating process for the end user, not to mention the accounting team that receives that, not just for me, we're a global organization. There's tons of people like that around the country, around the world. So that team then has the burden of going through and double checking all of this. And as Scott mentioned, the approval and the review of that can be painstakingly manual and time consuming. So think of automation as the way to take all of that literally out of the equation. So stop being, we'll stop being one of those 52% organizations that's physically mailing our receipts and expense reports. And then the next number on the screen that you're looking at, a huge why factor, is every expense report that's processed that way, when you factor in the time and the processing and the paper and the mailing and the shipping costs and all of that kind of stuff, average is about $26.60. That's US dollars, of course. The average cost to process each one of those expense reports. That can add up very quickly, as you might imagine. And so then when you do adopt an approval process, an automation process, an easy way to submit and manage those receipts without leaving your office, going to the printer, going to the copier, going to the mailroom at all, you can see a reduction cycle time of about 600%. Now, I don't know about you, that seems a little bit absurd even to me because it just seems ridiculously high, right? Well, we're going to take a look at that. We're going to go through this entire process in less than the time that we're going to spend together this morning, and you're going to see just how easy and quick and simple it can be. And then you can share that information, of course, with others in your organization to show them, hey, you know what? We might be doing it the wrong way. We might be doing it in a way that's a little too painful and time-consuming. And frankly, there's a better way from a financial perspective as well as from a time-consuming, streamlining that process perspective. So it's going to save you a lot of time. It's going to save you a lot of money. So just a quick glance at where your organization fits in the general realm of research that represents mid to large size organizations and enterprises. And just so you know, in terms of, the landscape, as it were, about 51% of organizations process less than 500 expense reports a month. Even still, at $26 each, that can add up pretty quickly. However, they still need something to take away that process of when the accounting person receives all of those expense reports, even less than 500, can be a very manual process, and that review cycle time can add up very quickly. The other extreme, in the next column over, 20% of organizations do more than 10,000. So you can see quite a variation, and then of course the rest remaining in the other graph bar charts there. The message here is that there are a lot of expense reports that are being processed very manually across your organization, and if there's anything that we can do at every step is going to gain us efficiency. If there's something we can do to cover all of the steps, then that's really the goal that we want to get to. So end-to-end automation of all of our expenses. So another look at why would we do this? In addition to all of the pain that I described as the expense submitter, let's take a look at kind of the overall organizational challenges. The data entry itself leads to inefficient processes. Part of that comes with the lack of integration to your ERP system, in this case being GP. So if the system by which you are entering those receipts and or creating your expense report, by the way, we're going to do that with a push of a button, is out of the equation, and that information that you have access to is real-time connected to GP, therefore you don't have to think about it. You don't have to know GL codes as the submitter. Of course, it's going to be there for the accounting team. But you don't have to think about those things. Think of how much time that's going to save, and that ability to translate what you submit as an expense report into something that can get processed and paid out of GP, again, with a very seamless integration. That is also going to save time and increase your efficiency there. Lack of visibility into spend. I don't know about you, but most organizational finance teams would love to have a picture of what they're going to be spending in expense reimbursements in any given period. And now, as soon as an expense report is submitted into an automated environment, they have visibility into, oh, we're going to have to incorporate this into our monthly liability or quarterly liability because these expenses were incurred on behalf of customers, projects, consulting entities and that sort of thing. So we can instantly have visibility into what is included in that spend for our organization in addition to the invoices, of course, that are coming in. Lengthy reimbursement cycles, as I described it before, they can take up to weeks. So, and of course, enforcing corporate travel and expense policies and other things that we have to deal with. So let's just do some quick math here. Let's say by way of example that your organization is processing 750 expense reports. That can get very expensive very quickly. As you can see, that'll be right around $20,000 a month. So people oftentimes don't look to see what it's costing them, even though they know what they're doing is painful and time-consuming and inefficient. So we're going to take a look now at how we can address that and what the automation process looks like. So I'm going to just jump over to my demo environment screen here. Bear with me one second while I switch screens. Scott, are you able to see my screen now where I've got my demo showing? Awesome.
Yep,
so,
you're wonderfully.
Perfect, thank you. So what we're going to do now is take a look at what that experience looks like. So you can probably all relate to, getting back to the office or the hotel or the conference center or whatever with that stack of receipts and hoping that none fell out of your pocket or backpack or whatever. And then you get back to the office and have to do something with them. Well, in the new environment, so fast forward to when you have expense automation in your environment and in your organization. Now, when you incur that expense, you simply take a picture with your phone. Oftentimes, I'm having dinner with clients or colleagues or partners. When I'm at an event, I don't even leave the table with the receipt. I take a picture right there when I complete the transaction. And if it's a digital one, I even take a picture just of the digital screen with my phone. I immediately send that in because, of course, my corporate email is connected to my business phone. And let's face it, we all carry those everywhere we go. And so take a picture, immediately send it into the system, and then they're waiting for me in my QuickTag environment. You can see I've got just my favorites showing here. So if you're not familiar with QuickTag, let me just take 30 seconds and describe what we're looking at here. QuickTag at our core is a document management system that allows you to manage any document across any business process, across any area of the organization in any department. So I just clicked on the little site link with the drop down in the upper left-hand corner of the screen that you're seeing, and I have various different sites. Those can represent instantly GP companies. You can see a direct translation, direct connection here to Fabricam, all of our favorite GP company, right? And so I have Fabricam drawers that relate to every single drawer that QuickTag automatically attaches to inside of GP. I'll show you what I mean by that in a minute. But then I also have other areas of my business. I might have other departments or divisions or finance here. I've got AP automation, human resources, expense. That's where we're going to spend most of our time today. Other areas of our business QuickTag, we use this internally as well. Legal, and then travel, and then maybe some other GP companies that I'm connected to. Wingtip Toys, that's one of my favorites. So what we're looking at here is the QuickExpense view. And when I have my favorites here, you can jump over to all drawers and you can see I've got receipt lines, I've got views into expense reports in process and that sort of thing. But I have a few that are favorited because in my expense experience, those are the ones that are most important to me as a submitter in this case, and then we'll take a look at the approval process when we after we submit the expense report. But the value of this is, I just want to spend a second describing what else this means. The value of this is for any one of those sites, for any one of those departments within your organization that needs to manage documents, you look down the hall, you see file cabinets and boxes and storage rooms, etc. And you can take all of those documents and put them into the same standard document management system that is the platform. It's the foundation of the automation that's also going to drive your expense management or AP automation or human resources forms, whatever else you decide to automate within your system. But so just know that in addition to an expense management solution, you're also getting a very powerful enterprise-wide document management system that at its core can really manage any document. We're going to focus specifically on expenses today. However, I just want you to be aware that there's more to the story and certainly other areas that we could drill into if you reach that stage in your business and want to evaluate some of those other areas. So, okay, we've taken a picture of our receipts with our phone. Now what? Well, we email them in and they come into a receipts drawer, just like we're looking at here. So they'll be waiting for us to do something. Or we could grab one immediately from our phone, desktop, laptop, whatever, if we send it in and tag it directly. I'm going to show you what both of those things look like. So if I look at my receipts drawer, it's saying, okay, tag a document. I've got a new receipt. I happen to have it sitting on my desktop because maybe I just took a picture and uploaded it really quick. I can drag and drop. Let's just go grab that coffee receipt. Say, okay, move that over. And I now have just a touch of data entry to do. I'm going to grab the date off the calendar, and I'm going to put coffee here, maybe breakfast. I type B, and it remembers everything else, so that wasn't too tough. And then here's where the magic starts to happen. I gave it a little bit of what we call header information about the receipt. Now, another thing to note, here's where the GP connection starts to come to life. If I had multiple companies in GP, those of you that work on both sides of the house, i.e. you're an expense submitter and you understand the finance aspects of integration to GP, you could also realize if this receipt was for a company that was not Fabricam, maybe I have 2, 3, 4 companies that are GP companies in my environment, I could just pick from that dropdown. Now, what's that like in GP? In GP, you have to log out of one company, log back into the next one, and then process the transaction as though it were, you're starting from scratch every time. When you're working in KwikExpense, because we have this direct connection to GP, you simply select the other company from the dropdown and you move on about your business and give it the rest of the information about the receipt. So we gave it some header information, company, the date, and generally what it was for. Now here's where again, the magic, the detail starts to come into play. I'm looking at this receipt, I can, okay, that was for sales, and I see that this was for meals, and if I have specific taxes that I want to apply, we have customers who have province selection right here, right before payment type, and then we can work with that a number of ways and then also show HST and any other tax types that you need to have specified on your specific receipt. As you can see, this one's in US dollars. However, if this was a tax line that I needed to enter, I would have that field available to me right here. So it's at the line item level so that we can allocate each of these costs to their respective GL codes once we get into GP. Again, remember, this is pulling from GP. Now you might say to yourself, I don't have a GL code called sales and meals. It's a 5-string GL code, a 4-string GL code, whatever the case may be in your organization. What we're doing here is we're letting the people who do the traveling and have the layman's terms of those departments, of those GL codes, visible to them here. What QuickTag is going to do on the back end is match those GL segments to the actual GL codes. And again, if taxes were a specific field here, which we offer for our Canadian customers as well and other parts of the world, then we would make that field visible as well. In my demo environment, I have a very simple display here for you, but however, we'll gladly dig into that and learn how you need those provincial taxes to be broken out. And again, HST and others can be separated as well. So when we do that at the line item level, we're just giving it a little bit of information as the salesperson. In this case, I was the traveler. I selected sales and meals. I don't need to know GL codes. I also have the option to bill it to a client. We have clients who need to pass through costs. Maybe it's a consulting engagement. Maybe it's something where it's a healthcare situation and they need to get reimbursed because the end patient or client is covering those costs. You can simply select your company, patient, and or other record to a lookup field where we can identify that that cost needs to be passed through to somebody else and report on that at a later time as well. So we've given it some additional information at the line item level. We'll submit that detail, and then we're done with this receipt. We submit it on. We could do that again any number of ways. I'll show you another one. When we come over into our Approval Essential experience, we have several different things here. I've got expense reports and receipts and invoices and all sorts of stuff. Because this is kind of my hub, as it were, for everything that I'm going to do in QuickTag. We're actually going to change the name of this from Approval Central to Tasks because there's lots of different task types that you're going to have to deal with potentially if you use QuickTag for more than one thing. In this case, we're just going to look at our receipts here. So here are some that you can see are pending workflow. Well, what does that mean? These are ones that I literally took the picture, sent it in straight from my phone, threw it away. I'm never going to look at that receipt again. And excuse me. And so now it's waiting for me. The other one I had happened to be on my desktop, so I did the drag and drop thing. This one I've already emailed in. You can see this is what I normally do. I send all of these in, and they're waiting for me to do something. So I better catch up or I'm not going to get reimbursed anytime soon here, huh? Good thing this is my demo environment. So I have this receipt. It's waiting for me to give it just a little bit of information. Again, here's where I sent them in. I have to tell it it's a KwikExpense and it's a receipt. So then I'm going to be presented with exactly the same layout and fields that I was before. So again, we'll just grab, I'll say it was yesterday, and this looks like it's a taxi receipt, so we're going to say taxi. Again, type T, it remembers everything for me, so it's not really very time intensive there. And again, here's where we begin that connection to GP, where we're segmenting this is the beginning of the GL segmentation. I'm in sales in this case, so, and this is a travel expense. It's going to be reimbursable. You can see we've got corporate cards there as well. I'll talk about that in a moment. This one will just process as a reimbursable, and we can just see that the line item amount there is $34.77. Again, I could bill to client. My taxes will appear here for me as well. So I submit that receipt. Now we've tagged a couple of receipts. I went ahead and tagged a couple earlier today as well so that they'd be ready for us and we can take a look at what the expense report process. But let's pretend now our queue is empty. This is why it never gets empty, because I always just move along. So we've tagged our receipts. We're done with that. And that took, less than 3 minutes, and we were talking about it at every step. So obviously if you're just tabbing through selecting a couple things, that's going to go pretty quickly. And then we come to the step of creating our expense report. Now, I don't need to open Excel. I don't even need to have Excel if I don't want to. And I'm going to just come into my expense report drawer, again, inside of my KwikExpense view here in QuickTag, and tell the system to create my expense report. We're going to run a date range for a couple days ago to today, because those are the areas that that's the date range that we just tagged those receipts for. And if I was doing this on behalf of someone, a lot of our customers have a situation where they have an admin person or somebody who's a central support person for many different members, potentially a sales team or the executive team or the consultants. They don't want the salesperson to be, or the consultant to be away from their clients and or in a non-billable state. So they say, let's have an admin person do this. Well, that's great too. They can have access to all of the same receipts and data, and they would simply select who they're processing this expense report for. So they could have a list of one or many people on whose behalf they could function. So we just select on behalf of, and then they will be shown as the proxy. Again, for audit purposes, you want to know who did this, right? So you'll still be able to see who was processing these receipts in this expense report, even if they weren't doing it for themselves. So we're going to go ahead and put Endeavour here, and we're going to put just a little bit of a name there so we can identify it along the way. And I basically told the system, create an expense report for me from this date range for anything that's reimbursable. For me, Mary, you can see up in the upper right-hand corner, I'm logged in as Mary, and I'm not doing this on behalf of anyone else. I don't need to know any detail. I don't need to go find any of that additional receipt level information. I simply submit it, and I say, okay, QuickTag, go find all the receipts that meet that criteria. What was the criteria? Well, simple date range. Typically, you're going to be doing this for a week, 2 weeks, a month are the most common, periods that we see clients submitting expense reports. However, you might do it every time. You might have a really high volume traveling organization. We have one customer who has 2,000 independent consultants actually across Canada who are out, incurring expenses on behalf of their customers, on behalf of their organization and their customers on a daily basis. They come back and they need to track things by patient and by province on a daily basis. So they enter them on a very frequent basis. You'll determine what makes the most sense in your organization, but there's no right or wrong or requirement there. It's really about how does your business need to function. So we've created and put together this expense report. And now we're still logged in as Mary, and we want to have that opportunity to just review it. Okay, so we haven't sent this to anybody just yet, and that's because QuickTag says, okay, I built what you asked me to. You said, give me an expense report for this date range for everything that was reimbursable. Take a look at it before you submit it, right? So it's the right thing to do. Make sure you didn't miss anything. And if you did, by the way, you could go back, add another receipt, maybe delete this one and go, gosh, lunch, that wasn't supposed to be for the company. I took my girlfriend to lunch, so I didn't need to expense that. Again, you make any edits before you submit this to your boss. Now, again, here's where you would see the on behalf of client. Here's where you would see the proxy if, let's say, an admin person was doing this on my behalf. And then, of course, we've got the receipt level detail there. So all of this information at a glance, you saw I didn't have to open Excel. I pushed a button, and we're talking about it probably 3 times longer than this expense report was actually waiting for us here. But this is my opportunity to review and edit it as the submitter. Again, someone else could also do this on my behalf. So I'm going to say, okay, great, looks good, go ahead and send it. Boy, that was tough. You see that the color changed, I'm going to click submit and off it goes. So it's going to disappear out of my view here as Mary, and it's then going to go on to the next person in this process. Now in my example here, the next person in this process is my Mary department manager role. In most organizations, that's going to be one or sometimes two levels of approval, where a company might have a department head and or a division director or vice president or something like that. And then if expenses maybe exceed a certain dollar amount or are for a specific project or something like that, you might have it where you have multiple levels of approval as well. There's a quick way to get all of those to collapse as well, but I was just closing them one at a time as we're talking through this. So
Mary, can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Scott here.
Yes.
For the Mary expense submitter person,
yes.
Does each person receive their own unique email where they can email receipts to? So they're only seeing the receipts that are emailed?
They receive, yes, they have their same email address. Actually, it's one email address, but what we do is we recognize the incoming email address. So it knows, it knows that Mary at Image Tags submitted these receipts, so only show them to Mary in her work queue. If you submitted yours would come from Scott, even though we could send to the same central queue.
Okay, got it.
Yep, no, great question, great question. So now we have our department manager head on then, and we can see that this expense report was created and submitted for us for review. We can scroll across, there's the one that we just worked with, Endeavour Expenses, that's the one we just built. Well, QuickTag built it for us, we pushed a button, and now we can see that the document owners originally were Mary, and the current assignee is Mary Department Manager. So as you can see in the upper right-hand corner now, we're logged in as Mary Department Manager. Here's that same Excel spreadsheet, again, all of the details and the receipt line item. Now, we can drill down into this and actually look at these individual receipts. Maybe we're not sure if, Mary should have gone to breakfast for that, for $6. Might want to, tell her, hold on, go to McDonald's next time. No, I'm kidding. But the whole idea of that visibility as an approver, and then you can also see the workflow history associated with that, and we can set it up that you can even approve or reject at the receipt level. So if you have the control within your organization or a travel policy within your organization that you want to be able to approve or reject these at the receipt level, you can do that as well. And it would send a notification back to Mary and say, hey, you need to fix this. Or maybe you're looking at it and realizing that wasn't dinner, that was a flight, what's wrong with you? So you can give some feedback back to the person if you want that level of visibility and control as well. In our case, we can again look at the whole workflow history. We see that Mary did that initial tagging, check, got that done. Mary Department Manager is now the person waiting for action, and the status is still pending, hence the little empty hourglass there. And if we'd been adding comments along the way, we would see those here as well. So we're tracking this for audit trail purposes, just like you would track for your AP automation process and invoices, and when you have auditors come in, you need that visibility to see who did what when, who approved it, and if this was a legitimate business expense, we need to be able to see all of the detail related to those expenses, okay? And again, we could reject the whole thing. Maybe we say, this wasn't even for an approved client event. What were you thinking? So we could reject the whole thing. We could send it back to Mary and say, hey, fix it, take these 2 receipts out, and don't forget to put your hotel receipt in because I don't see one here, whatever. Or we can go ahead and approve it. We're going to do that in a second, but I also want to show you the mobile experience for that. Again, our mobile devices, we don't go anywhere without them, and we want to be able to see a really quick and easy view, even when we're on our phone. So we're going to get an email notification on our phone. It's going to look like this. It's going to say the attached expense report has been routed to you and requires your attention. So I can open that Excel spreadsheet, even though, as you saw, we didn't create one. QuickTag that did that for us. And it'll show us all of the detail. We can, again, scroll over and see the information about who did what with this expense report. We can get that summary information in the top and the line item view right here. Or we could log in to this to the QuickTag Anywhere experience and do it online. So we like to give people options. This is really of particular benefit for expense approvers that are traveling quite a bit. I don't know about you, but when I'm sitting at the airport or sitting at the coffee shop or have a little bit of time to kill and I'm going through my email on my phone, the first thing I look for is expense approval, invoice approval. I can quickly do that, approve or reject, move on. And usually we can also, usually we have these with an approve reject button right here for you as well. I just don't have it in this specific example for you, but I could show you what it looks like here with, oh, that's not the one either. But anyway, there's a red and green button required. This one will have it for you, that you can just simply click the button and it'll create the reply approve email for you, and you'll click send. If you were going to reject it, of course, same thing, you'd have to put comments in, but we can put these approve reject buttons on the email approval process, which is what most people require. Again, as simple as and quick as possible that you can make it. That's what most people prefer. So here we've looked at all of this detail in our email, or we can look at it in our online environment. It's really a matter of personal preference. We give you both options. And if I have a lot to review and approve at one time, chances are I'm going to do it here in this online environment where I'm just going to go check, 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 and I've got other things I need to review. So we're going to go ahead and approve it here. We can put comments here and say, okay, to pay if we want. Comments aren't required, of course. But then the translation of this expense report that we are now done processing is going to go into GP as a payables transaction entry. Now, if you're familiar with QuickTag and the way that we work for AP automation, where we're processing incoming invoices and they get routed for approval and then they wind up in GP as a payables transaction entry, what we're doing is the same thing for expense reports at the end of the process. The beginning of the process, of course, is just what we just walked through together, where receipt submitters and the expense report owner are tagging a few things and pushing a button to create an expense report. But the end of the process, again, this is where kind of the magic happens, as it were, because we're taking that expense report and we're saying, okay, we now need to get this into our ERP system, our system of record, in this case GP, and have that be a payable transaction entry. Now, in some cases, that's going to be a payable to me, Mary, the employee or the contractor or consultant for the organization. In some cases, it's going to be a payable to your corporate card. Maybe it's with a bank or American Express or some other card provider. So if I show you over here on the right-hand side, now this is my work queue. This is my QuickTag work queue. If you blinked, you missed it. On top of the payables transaction entry, there's a little additional tab menu. Let me just close it and go back. This additional menu, this is where QuickTag comes to life. Remember, I talked about document management as a platform. There's tag, view, search documents that you can do for any document that's associated, whether GP related or not. These, of course, are highlighted for the GP transactions that documents are related to with QuickTag. But then this is our work queue. And our work queue says, okay, anything that has been routed through QuickTag for approval for payables creation is going to come here upon final approval, one or many levels. And you can see here I've got expenses. I could batch and group these. If I put all these by document number, I could grab all my expenses and put them into one batch. I could grab all my invoices and put them into a batch, or I could select just the one that we're working with. So in this case, we'll just refresh and we're going to see our expense report come in. Yep, there it is. And we can right-click and view the document. I don't know about you, but most accounting people that I know, and I used to be one, so I get it, want that final check of did everything happen right and can I take a quick look at the document just to make sure it's good. Now, once you get comfortable with the process and you've seen many of them, you know what to expect. It might not be as big of a deal or as required for you, but just know that you always have that option to view the document before you send it in to have a payables transaction created. Now I'm going to take a look at these details because again, this is where kind of the magic starts to happen. You see GL codes with a 3-segment string down here at the bottom, each one for a different line amount. Now that's because we had a couple of receipts that were for meals, so those went into my meals GL code, a couple that were for travel, and probably some that were for a different type of expense. So I just, I selected either sales or service and then meals or travel or training or whatever. And now QuickTag has done the mapping of those receipt details and grouped them according to the GL code. So we can verify that before we see the PTE get created. So I'm just going to right click here and I could create it that way, or I could have this one selected and click create right there. So we're going to go ahead and put this expense into the Mary expense batch. And it's going to create the payables transaction entry for us. It's going to give us all of, we see it disappear out of our work queue, of course. We'll go find that batch really quick. Period expense, there it is, and select it, and the PTE is created. Now, it's gone ahead and populated all of this. It's created the GL distributions for the respective line items. Again, remember, we put in, travel and sales and meals and whatever, but it's mapped those specific line items to the proper GL codes here at the distribution level. And again, if there were taxes here, those would also have their own line items and be allocated accordingly. And they're now forever already assigned and then forever attached to this transaction is the document. So at any time I want to go back to that additional view document, it's attached to this transaction. So the Excel spreadsheet that I didn't create, that KwikExpense created for me, routed for approval, sent into GP, is now associated with that transaction. Now here's another cool thing. If I come in and decide that I need to add some additional information to this particular transaction. Maybe I got an email from my boss that said, make sure that you adjust the codes for that one meal because it was for lunch with this client instead of that client or whatever. I have to at some point add additional information. I could grab a document for that. I'm just going to grab a document here. I have a packing slip. Says, do you want to attach this? Yes, that's fine. I'm going to connect that document to that transaction. But then I have that email from my boss. Let me just come back over here. We're going to add that one to it as well and say, all right, I've got more information I need to add to this transaction because I have to have all the documentation. And gosh, for audit purposes, it's really important that that we can track everything and see everything in the same spot. Again, same system of record that we're using for all of our documents and all of our approvals and all of our business processes. I can grab that whole email and you see that I'm dragging it onto the little barcode area. Now this email, we just looked at it together, has an attachment. It says, are you sure you want to attach this email to this transaction using QuickTag? And I say yes. So now it has grabbed that entire email, including the attachment to that transaction inside of GP. So think of it as building a library or an audit trail as needed by transaction. Well, then you might be thinking, okay, what happens at audit time? Am I going to have to know where all of these transactions are and which transactions have documents associated with and which ones don't and where they live and how they're related? Well, rest assured that will not be necessary. We come back over to QuickTag Anywhere where we have all of those things in digital drawers. Everything that we have created up to this point are now being stored for us inside of QuickTag. So we can see that this expense report, same one that we just created, has been sent for payment. Now again, remember, I'm logged in as Mary, so I can see, wow, I've got all of these that have been sent for payment, and because in my demo environment I'm actually an administrator, I can see some other people as well. But that might be the case for you if you are a manager, department manager, or have other direct reports or work with those who need to have this type of visibility. They can then just look at this, see the workflow history, and just like you would for an invoice, you can see who did what, who approved it, and that it's ready to pay. So again, a ton of visibility there, and you can still drill down and see those receipts. So end to end, we captured a few receipts on our phone. We emailed them in. QuickTag recognized that I emailed them in from Mary@imagetag.com, so I was the expense submitter. We gave it a little bit of information at the line item level. We said, hey, we're sales, meals, travel, whatever. Included our taxes if we needed to. Included bill to client if we needed that. Pressed a button to say create the expense report for this time frame if it was for anything that was reimbursable, and it routed it for approval. Upon approval, that payables transaction entry was created inside of GP. Now, I also want to spend just a couple of seconds talking about what you do if you use corporate cards, because we have a lot of clients who not only have reimbursable expenses, but also have a corporate card environment where they are downloading their expense statements at the end of the month, maybe from a bank website, and or they get an email from the bank that's got, a CSV or an Excel or something like that that breaks down all of that detail. And we can accelerate that part of the process too. This is actually really cool. We use it internally, and so when we get to the end of the month and we have to submit all of our expenses for our corporate cards, we get an email notification that says, hey, you're missing these 2 receipts. I'll show you what that looks like. You can see here that corporate finance has gotten this Excel spreadsheet. They've simply loaded it. Let's just come over here for a second. Let's say we get a new one for this month. We're going to browse out, go to our expenses, and take a quick look at our sample documents here, find our expenses, and grab that file. We'll just say, okay, this is our Amex March. We'll say open, drag and drop, and it's looking for those receipts. QuickTag is going to say, okay, Mary used her corporate card for two things, a gym membership and an event flight. And it was on this date, and it was with this card number, and it's going to then look for receipts that have that information. Now, if I'm the accounting person, I'm loading this file for everybody in the organization, not just Mary, right? Now, as Mary, I can only see mine. But what used to happen in this, and maybe you can relate to this because this has been the case in every place I've also worked, not just here, especially for small and mid-sized businesses, though, they get that expense report today. Finance receives that full statement from the bank card, and they have to then go in and cover on the statement the parts of the statement that don't apply to me, Mary, and cover it up, make copies, show me the section of the report that's just mine, and in some cases what they actually used to do was cut it up and then file it back together on the copy machine. It was crazy. And route that around for these are the things that I need to know what you did and how they should be coded. And so then they would have to sit on my desk, wait for me to do something with them when I got around to it, and then I'd have to go look up and find those receipts, shoot, what was that for, and then attach them back to that section of the statement, give it back to accounting. Imagine that paperwork nightmare, right? Well, now what QuickTag can do is they just automatically upload it and say, okay, these are Mary's receipts. Do I want the system to email her and let her know that she's missing them? Yes. Okay, rerun now just to check. Maybe she submitted them in the time we've been talking about it, and go look for those receipts. So we drag and drop the expense statement over here. It segments it out by user. Again, I'm only seeing Mary, but as all of the users in the system, they would be able to see their own. Accounting, of course, can see everything. And tell QuickTag to go and find any receipts that are already there and let me know what the status of these. So if I do a quick refresh here in a minute, they're going to turn red, just like the ones that you saw here. So if I look at this one, oh, look, it found one for Michael. He's got one that's been submitted and one that he's still missing. Talk about visibility. Your accounting team, your finance managers, whoever it is that needs to see this access, can then instantly see what expenses have been accounted for and which ones are still waiting for those receipts. So we give a lot of visibility into that part of the process as well. And then here's that email notification. Let's just hop over and take a quick look at that. And it says, okay, QuickExpense is telling you you're missing some receipts. Here's the transaction detail. Here's the amount. Go find those receipts. Once I do and add them into the system, then my my expense lines are going to turn green, just like that one. So again, it really simplifies. There's the red lines because it's telling us that we're missing those. We've got to go find them, get them into the system. So it's really taking that, what we call the nagging process aspect of it, off of accounting's plate and making the user do the homework. So here's just a quick summary of that. If this was a situation where the expense approver also wanted to take a look at the Amex report, just like the reimbursable report, get that email notification, click approve or reject in the online system, same thing. We call QuickExpense the nagging email notification. And I was talking to a client just yesterday, and they said, you mean I don't have to chase those people anymore? I don't have to look to see if they did it yet and then chase them anymore? It was like, wait, just physically lifted off her shoulders. I could see it through the phone. Maybe you can relate. So in that experience, it's going to make it super easy for your expense submitters to know what they're missing and for your approvers to have visibility into every step of that process. So as I mentioned, when we began talking, the process here begins with the foundation of a core, very powerful document management, document capture system. So yes, we are making the receipts go away. We are eliminating the step of creating an Excel spreadsheet. We are eliminating the pain and hassle of an approver looking for information that they're supposed to find, approve, and then get back to accounting. And we're eliminating the step of accounting having to look for all of that supporting information, because the transaction's automatically created in GP and the supporting documentation is attached to that transaction as well. And it all lives in the same system that they can use for any area of their business. So remember that at our core with document management, we're making the paper go away. That integration into GP, as you just saw, is also very, very powerful, because not only are we creating the transaction for that expense or invoice or whatever it is that you're sending to a PTE screen, we're also creating those GL codes already so that you've got that visibility and then showing you the supporting documentation inside of ERP and inside of QuickTag if you need to find it there. And the automation, all that time that we talked about at the beginning, the weeks that it takes to process things from a very manual, paper-based perspective are gone. The automation saves us all of that time and gains a ton of efficiency. And then, as I mentioned, we can automate any business process. We often start with accounting and expenses and invoices and those sorts of areas because when you look out of your office and down the hall, those are typically where the highest value, highest volume of file cabinets and boxes and storage tend to live. However, what we also find is that HR is a common next step because they also have file cabinets. So what we do for expenses and invoices and all of that from a document management and automation perspective, HR is very common for people to look at employee files, contract files, training documentation, compliance, benefits, all of those sorts of things, taxes and everything that you have for employees and independent contractors can be managed the same way. And then likewise, legal, contract management, an area that people also look at lots of file cabinets outside of those particular offices as well. So look around your business and find the places that have the greatest amount of filing cabinets, and chances are you'll find an opportunity where you can extend the value of QuickTag because you put it in for expense management or invoice automation or the like, but you can use it for any of those other areas of your business. So let's just recap some of the benefits that we've covered. We can capture and submit receipts from our phone. No more carrying around the paper receipts or sticking them in our bag or hoping we can find them when we get back. We're increasing employee satisfaction. We're getting them paid faster. They don't have to create expense reports in Excel anymore. We're taking all of that out of the equation. And of course, the approval process that we just looked at is going to instantly decrease the processing costs because those people are then going to get a notification in their email or they can log in online and do it, click of a button, and they're back to work. So taking out all of those weeks of it sitting on their desk and waiting for somebody to do something with it. And of course, the creation of the transaction inside a GP, your accounting team is happy again. They're not stressed. They're not looking at this huge pile of paper on their desk every week or every day or however often they come in. And that audit visibility and the bottlenecks that happen are instantly taken off the table for you as well because you can see end to end exactly where each of those reports lives, and you can have that instant reconciliation with your corporate card statements as well. So just to highlight a couple examples, I call this the QuickTag Family Snapshot. My slide gets a little bit busier every year because I try to swap out and update and add them. Of course, this is just a subset, but it is a really good representation of our location where we have customers in the United States, in Canada, in the UK, in Australia, many places around the globe. I think the only continent that we're not on is Antarctica. I don't know how many people live there exactly, but I guess there's not a lot of paper problem up there. But nonetheless, we have companies that are in all sorts of shapes and sizes and industries that face these same challenges of paper-based problems and manual processes that are frustrating and time-consuming and stressful, frankly, for their teams. And so they're all able to work with QuickTag to eliminate those challenges. And as Scott said, they're 28. Well, they're 7 years older than we are because we're just out turning 21. And so in the States, that means we're legal. So we've been doing this for 21 years. And as I mentioned, we started as a core capture and document management platform. But every time our customers and our partners have come to us with what I'll call enhancement request or a suggestion for, hey, it'd be really great if it did this, we have added to our product portfolio and extended into all of these other modules. As I've shown you KwikExpense today, there's certainly others we can drill into should your business have those needs as well. So we continue to innovate, we continue to add new products, we continue to extend the Quick apps and the application of automation across your entire organization. And in doing so, we've gained 120,000 business users around the globe, so lots of users of QuickTag could be happy to share their story with you. And we have all of our support right here in Tempe, Arizona. Now, I don't know what the weather is in Canada today, but if you're looking for a nice place to visit and have some training, come on down. And as we've covered, you can automate any business process across your organization. If there's a document, we can store it, manage it, capture it, automate it, and in many cases, automatically associate it with those transactions in GP, and or you can add them yourself and make them quickly visible as well. So I hope that that has been really helpful and encourage you to stay connected. You can also visit this particular website. I know you've got Endeavor's website as well, but you can also visit this site that we've created together just for you so that you can find information about how we work together. There's some ebooks here, blog links, research reports, quick videos, and some additional resources there as well. So I would encourage you to check that out when you have a moment, and certainly let us know if you have questions. Scott, back to you.
Thanks very much, Mary. And yes, we have a link to this specific page off of our website too, and I'll be putting our recording of this presentation up on our EndeavourSolutions.ca/QuickTag page.
Awesome. Yeah, I love it. Thank you.
With that in mind, Trish is our internal client relationship manager, and she's the lead for those clients that are interested in exploring different process improvement strategies, additional software and demos, and discussions around QuickTag and KwikExpense.
Awesome.
So thank you very much for wonderful overview, Mary. That's been fantastic, and I really liked the drag and drop email component, and
Cool.
I can, I've seen many of your other demos where you can drag and drop just about everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think in contrast to some of the other expense systems in the market, the fact that you were born and raised and working with Microsoft Dynamics really is a testament to supporting the mid-market clients that are basically our client base, and having that seamless integrations and flow processes. I think there's a really complement for what people need, and watching the different refinements over the years as you and I have been working together has been great to watch. So thanks again for your time.
Yeah, thank you,
everyone. Scott. Thank you, and have a wonderful day, and reach out to Trish or reply to the webinar link or see us online on our website, and happy to continue the conversation.